Breaking news for this morning, Canada's unemployment rate declined for the first time since January, falling to 6.5%. New numbers from Stats Canada show the economy added 47,000 jobs last month. Employment rose among youth aged 15 to 24 and women 25 to 54. Increases were seen in Ontario, Quebec, Manitoba, and Nova Scotia. Declines were noted in British Columbia and New Brunswick. And joining me now is Pedro Atunes, the chief economist with the Conference Board of Canada. Pedro, thank you very much for joining us.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
47,000 jobs in September. Is that good news, or could it have been better?
Well, no, it's good news. It's a strong month for job creation in Canada. Of course, there's a lot of, how should I say, there's a lot of measurement error around that estimate. So it's always good to take a look at what's happening happened over the last few months. And what we've seen is essentially employment had leveled off and flattened out really over the last 4 months. So this is a bit of a tick up in what is, I would say, still a very soft labor market in the last quarter, let's say.
And where do we see the increases? Public service workers, different industries, which benefited from this? Can you break that down?
Well, we've got, in fact, pretty strong numbers on the services side of the economy, the business services side of the economy, which is good news. One that I always look at is professional, scientific, technical services. This has been a growth generator in terms of employment since the pandemic. In terms of, well, in fact, over the last number of decades, but certainly since the pandemic, we've seen very strong growth in that category, and this continues in the latest month with strong numbers there. We've seen a slight decline in health employment, which is a bit of a concern. I know we're still struggling here to find workers in that segment. So overall, though, certainly a good private sector job creation number for the month.
Okay, and now the employment rate was also down, though.
Yeah, this is an issue. I think we are still seeing, essentially very strong population growth. So over the last year, in fact, we've seen, despite the fact that job growth has been pretty good, so we see employment being created, but we see the number of people coming into the workforce growing even more strongly. And this is because we have opened up a lot of immigration, a lot of temporary foreign workers. So we've seen essentially the employment rate decline and the job market slackening. And the unemployment rate had gone from about 5% to 6.6%. It just ticked down in this reading a little bit to 6.5%, but it still suggests a fairly slack labor market. Now, the government is intending to put the brakes on temporary foreign workers and essentially non-permanent resident immigration. I think that is going to continue to tighten up the labor market as we go forward, even in a soft job generating environment.
And of course, the Bank of Canada with these numbers, do we expect another rate cut now? Well, maybe a bigger one, maybe a half point?
Well, in fact, the numbers are pretty strong on the employment front, so that would suggest that the economy is holding up fairly well, and that's generally, the bank is looking for anything too soft in terms of generating or getting them to lower interest rates more quickly. But in this report from StatsCan, we also saw that wage growth has eased up a little bit. Wage growth is still running fairly hot. It's in the prior month, it was running 5% year over year. It came down to 4.6% in this reading. So that's good news. I think that's a better news story here for the Bank of Canada in terms of continuing on its path of reducing interest rates.
Okay, Pedro, thank you as always for your breakdown.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Pedro Atunes is the Conference Board of Canada's chief economist.